The morning air around Rockefeller Plaza buzzed with energy. Fans pressed against the studio glass, holding signs that read, "We love you, Blake," and "Country Forever." It was supposed to be a fun, easygoing episode of Today with Jenna and Friends, a cheerful start to the day with country star Blake Shelton promoting his new single and cracking jokes in his usual down-to-earth way. Inside the brightly lit studio, producers hustled between cameras, adjusting sound levels and giving cues. Jenna Bush Hager, glowing in a bright blue dress, reviewed her cue cards one last time. Blake was known to be playful on set, and she was ready for a few laughs. When the theme music played and the camera light blinked red, Jenna turned toward the audience with her signature enthusiasm. "Good morning, everyone. Today we've got one of our favorite guests, country music legend, the one and only, Blake Shelton." Blake entered to roaring applause, waving to the crowd with a grin. He wore jeans, boots, and a denim jacket that looked like it had been through more barbecues than red carpets. "Well, dang, y'all are way too awake for this early," he quipped, earning immediate laughter. Jenna chuckled. "You're not a morning person, huh? Not unless there's coffee with whiskey in it," Blake joked, his grin widening. The audience erupted again, and the chemistry between them seemed effortless, at least at first. They talked about his ranch, his upcoming tour, and life after The Voice. Everything was smooth sailing until Jenna pulled out a question card with a producer's note scribbled in the corner. "So, Blake," she began with a polite smile, "there's been a lot of buzz about your recent comments on the state of country music. Some folks thought you were being a little harsh when you said most new country sounds like pop with cowboy hats. What did you mean by that?" The smile on Blake's face faltered just slightly. He leaned back in his chair and adjusted his mic. "Well," he said slowly, "I meant exactly what I said. There's a lot of music out there pretending to be country, and it's not. Country music's about stories, real life, not drum machines and auto-tune." A ripple of awkwardness moved through the studio. Jenna kept her composure, still smiling. "But don't you think the genre's just evolving? Every kind of music changes over time." Blake's voice sharpened. "Evolution's fine, Jenna, but evolution doesn't mean selling your soul. You can't take a pop song, toss in a banjo, and call it country. That's not evolution, that's confusion." The audience laughed nervously. The energy had shifted from fun to tense. Dylan Dreyer, Jenna's co-host, jumped in to lighten the mood. "Well, I know one thing that hasn't changed, Blake still tells it like it is." But instead of easing up, Blake leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "That's the problem, Dylan. Everyone wants you to be real until you actually say something real. Then suddenly you're controversial." Producers behind the cameras exchanged worried glances. The floor manager motioned for Jenna to wrap the topic, but she tried to smooth things out gently. "You've always been honest, and that's what people love about you. But some artists you mentioned by name, they felt personally attacked. Do you regret saying any of that?" That was the spark. Blake's jaw tightened. "You invited me here to talk about my music, not to grill me about what I said. If I start sugarcoating things now, I might as well quit." The tension became visible. The laughter died completely. The live audience sat frozen as Blake's voice grew louder, the drawl thicker with irritation. Jenna tried to interject, "We're just having a conversation." Blake interrupted, his tone sharp but controlled. "No, we're not. You're trying to make me sound like I'm attacking people when all I did was defend what country music used to stand for." A producer waved frantically off camera, signaling to cut to a commercial break, but the cameras were still rolling. Blake stood abruptly, unclipping his mic. "You know what, I don't need to sit here and be made the bad guy on live TV." Gasps filled the room. Jenna blinked, clearly flustered, as Blake dropped the mic on the couch. "Blake, please," she began, reaching out slightly, but he was already stepping off the set. Security and crew rushed toward him, unsure whether to intervene. Blake stopped briefly near the curtain, turned back toward the hosts, and said, "No disrespect, but I'm done with the fake stuff. You can't ask for honesty and then freak out when you get it." The studio was silent except for the faint sound of cameras whirring. Then Jenna, ever the professional, straightened her posture, forced a smile, and turned to the audience. "Well," she said with a shaky laugh, "I guess Blake Shelton has left the building." The audience clapped hesitantly as the show cut abruptly to a commercial. But the damage was done. Within minutes, clips of the fiery exchange began circulating online. Producers whispered backstage that Blake had been asked to leave, to de-escalate the situation. Outside, fans waiting for him to sign autographs were stunned to see him storm past, sunglasses on, jaw clenched, muttering something about media nonsense. The story hit social media before he even reached his car. Blake Shelton kicked off today with Jenna and friends after heated exchange. The morning that began with laughter had ended in one of the most talked about TV moments of the year. By the time the sun had reached its peak over New York, the clip of Blake Shelton storming off today with Jenna and friends had already gone viral. The internet was on fire. Hashtags like hashtag Blake Shelton meltdown and hashtag Today Show drama dominated every social media platform. Millions of people had seen the moment where he unhooked his mic and walked off, his voice echoing, "You can't ask for honesty and then freak out when you get it." The reactions came fast and fierce. Fans flooded his social media pages with comments. Some praised him for standing up for real country music. Others accused him of being rude and disrespectful to Jenna, who had simply been doing her job. Within hours, major entertainment outlets were running headlines like, "Blake Shelton kicked off live TV after explosive clash," and "Country star sparks chaos on morning show." Inside NBC headquarters, chaos reigned. Producers huddled in closed offices, debating how to handle the PR nightmare. Jenna, though visibly shaken, insisted on staying professional. During the next live segment, she addressed the situation delicately, smiling through the tension. "Live television is unpredictable," she said. "We love Blake, and we hope things smooth out once the dust settles." Her calm tone earned her praise from viewers, but behind the scenes, the network wasn't pleased. Executives worried that Blake's outburst might overshadow the rest of the show's lineup. They quietly reached out to his management team, asking for a statement. But Blake wasn't ready to play nice. That afternoon, while his team drafted potential responses, Blake took to social media himself. On X, he wrote, "If being honest gets you kicked off TV, then I'll wear that like a badge." The post exploded with engagement, hundreds of thousands of likes, shares, and comments within minutes. Some hailed him as a truth teller, while others accused him of fueling unnecessary drama. Country music stations across America began buzzing about it. Radio hosts debated his remarks, calling him fearless, reckless, or both. One popular host joked, "Leave it to Blake to turn breakfast television into a barroom argument." Nashville insiders whispered that while the industry was split, one thing was certain: everyone was talking about him again. 3 days later, Blake appeared on a country radio interview, his voice calmer but still edged with defiance. "Look," he said, "I didn't walk off. I was told to leave. They wanted me to smile and pretend everything's perfect, and that's not me. I love country music, but I'm not gonna sit there while people twist my words." The statement reignited the firestorm. The Today Show released a brief official statement later that day. "During our recent broadcast, we experienced an unexpected live moment. Mr. Shelton was asked to step off set to de-escalate the situation. We wish him all the best." They avoided saying he was kicked off, but the message was clear. The public debate only intensified. Late-night hosts joked about it, news anchors analyzed it like a political scandal. Fans created memes, videos, even songs referencing the now famous mic drop moment. For a full week, Blake Shelton's name dominated entertainment headlines. But underneath the noise, something deeper began to happen. Blake's unapologetic stance struck a chord with people who felt frustrated by the state of modern music. Country traditionalists rallied behind him, calling him the last cowboy in Nashville. His older songs surged back up the charts. Then came the unexpected twist. A few days later, Blake posted a short video from his Oklahoma ranch. He was sitting on his porch with his guitar, a soft breeze rustling the trees behind him. "You can't make everybody happy," he said quietly, "but you can make sure you're not lying to yourself." He strummed a slow tune, humming the chorus of what would become his next single. The clip went viral again, but this time for a different reason. The comments were overwhelmingly supportive. Fans called it raw, real, and the Blake Shelton we love. Even some critics admitted that his honesty, though rough around the edges, was part of what made him unique. A week later, Blake announced the release of a new song titled No Apologies. The single dropped at midnight and shot straight to #1 within days. The lyrics were unmistakably inspired by the controversy. "They can kick me off their stages, but they can't kick out the truth." It was both a defiant anthem and a message of resilience, a declaration that he wasn't going to change just to please the industry. Meanwhile, Jenna addressed the situation again on air, this time with warmth. "Blake and I have been in touch," she said. "It was a tough moment, but sometimes passion gets the better of all of us. He's a good guy, and we wish him nothing but success." Her grace won over many who had initially sided against her, softening the lingering bitterness between fans. Over time, what began as a scandal slowly turned into a redemption story. The fight that had seemed like career suicide instead reignited Blake's relevance. His authenticity, once seen as a flaw, became his greatest strength. By the end of the month, Blake was back in the headlines, not for walking off a TV set, but for topping the charts again. Critics who had once doubted him now wrote glowing reviews about no apologies. In interviews, he smiled a little more, laughed a little louder, and when asked about the infamous moment, he simply said, "Sometimes the truth causes a storm, but storms clear the air." And with that, Blake Shelton had not only weathered the controversy, he turned it into a defining chapter of his legacy, proving that sometimes the loudest exit leads to the strongest comeback.